Many partners worry that disclosing to their kids will do more damage to the family. What was your experience with this, and how did it help your family begin to heal together?
Well, I kind of think this is like a two-part answer because when we went through Pure Desire the first time, our kids were like 7 and younger, and Luke wasn't even born yet. So, he didn't get born till a year after recovery, our Pure baby. Sorry. Um, but I think with Alyssa, she was really the oldest. She's our oldest, and she was the only one that ever asked a question like, "Why do we have to go to this group every week?" And are you guys okay? And we're like, yeah. And Nick actually had a really good answer. He's probably said it, but he told her, well, daddy hurt mommy, and so we're going to group to get help. And I think that was enough for her to just be like, okay, you're not getting a
Age
divorce, or
appropriate.
you're not mad at each other, or something bad's not going to happen. As the kids got older, we just continued to have a conversation and use our story to help guide those conversations. So
Yeah.
when the kids have questions about pornography or something their friends are asking or relationships, like we can always kind of guide them back through either the tools we've used or through our story of disclosure to like help them see why it's important not to look at porn, or why, we are saying what we're doing, not just like don't do it because God says so. Like here's the reasons, here's what it does to your brain, and here's how addictive it is, and here's what it can do to your marriage or your relationships. And then they've seen us processing all of that and dealing with all of that, and we've always like communicated really openly with them, so they know that it's truth. And Nick takes the kids out like when they're 12 and does like a bigger disclosure of like what his job is and what he's done and what our whole story is. And so I think that's really good. Like you kind of like, I don't feel like disclosure for us has been like, okay, we disclosed to the kids and now we're done. Like they were little and then they got older, and so now here's another piece, and then like maybe when they're about to get married or something like that, there's another piece. Like there's always a layer of disclosure, I feel like. And even like, so, and then another thing I think hopefully we've done well is like when the boys were little and you'd be like grocery shopping or shopping at Target, there's images everywhere, right? So like teaching them all the things like, well, we're going to bounce our eyes because we want you to only, see your wife someday, and just teaching them those little things. And I've already kind of seen them like when they're watching TV or playing a video game, like they're looking away and I'm like, what are you doing? They're like, oh, there was a inappropriate thing, or and I'm like, I'm so proud of you. Sometimes they're faster than their dad. But I've just seen that. And then like the boys especially, like they'll have a lot more questions than the girls related to like pornography and things. And I just they come to me right now because they're younger, but like I think as they get older they'll go more to their dad. But I can just always use my story like to help them say, well, this is why that's bad. And this is I told Luke the other day, like, because he was worried about his friends and some things they're doing, and I was like, well, he didn't want to like get in trouble for telling, and I was like, well, bud, this is like a drug, and if your friends were doing drugs, you'd want their parents to know, right? So
yeah,
I don't know, it's just been
a
process, continued process.
It's so good, I think. I mean, I think that there can never be like an over sharing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or not taking opportunity to do that when your kids are little.
Mm-hmm.
I even remember in the grocery stores, especially, when they'd have all the magazines or whatever, and sometimes I would turn them around, even when my kids were little. But then they would get to the age where they're like, why do you do that? And I would just say, this is inappropriate.
Yeah.
But then when you see them together and they're still little, but one is looking at something, or they start using that language with each other, they start telling each other that it's inappropriate. I loved that as a mom, because it's like, okay, this is working, even though they didn't really have a full concept of what that word meant necessarily, but still I think that was so good for them.
It reminds me, there's this store in Spokane. I don't know if you guys have Rosars here. We have Rosars in Washington, but they have a family-friendly aisle, and it has none of the magazines, and it's like none of the gum, none of the candy, none of the magazines. It's like bananas and whatever. But it is everywhere. And so I like what you're saying is it's not disclosure. It's just that's part of your story, and you're just sharing your story and implementing it in your life and teaching your kids along the way, which is what we're supposed to do, is just teach them along the way and be real about our experiences. So it's Yeah, I mean, it's everywhere,
Really
so it's
good.
over and over and over and over. It's not one time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we're
Yeah.
doing something
Kind
new
of like
this week.
the old-fashioned thought, like the sex talk is like a one and done. It's like,
Yeah,
no,
it's not
that's
that.
like a continual thing that you just keep doing as your kids ask questions. You
Yeah.
know? You're like constantly
'Cause how many
just
times
making it
even-
an accessible thing to talk about.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I was going to say, because even for me as an adult, I'll get out of a group, whether I'm leading a Betrayal and Beyond or an Unraveled, and I'm like, oh, I'm so glad to not be in group for a while. And then about 6 months later, I'm like, okay, maybe I need a group again. It's like even as adults, we need constant rerouting.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I've been eating too much candy, I've been watching too much TV, and so we can't expect